Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. Well, it's been a really interesting week here. I presume you've had an interesting week in whatever part of the world you're in too. The world seems to be sort of going a little bit out of control again with a number of weather events happening and things happening that sort of people are sort of saying things like here on the Gold Coast we've had a number of severe storms and they're saying, I can't remember a time when we've had storms like this. Well, that's probably quite true as it is in other parts of the world. And, we all seem to be sort of talking about the buzzword of climate change, but who's doing anything about it? And that's the thing that sort of really gets under my skin, I think, a little bit. All the politicians are very good at the chatter and the photo ops and, yes, we're going to do this and, yes, we're going to do that. And I know they're all heading over in the next couple of weeks for the big conflab around the table about climate change. But what are they really going to do about it? It's time now that I think we really need to be getting serious about this, that, the world is changing. We are responsible for it. We are causing it. We are using far too many resources. And isn't it time we took some constructive action about it, even if it's not for us, but for the future generations that are to come behind us? And it really makes me sort of cross when I hear things like, oh, yes, but we've got to get the economy open and we can't do this because it might wreck the economy. I think we've all had a little bit too much of hearing about the economy, particularly during COVID, like people haven't been able to go to work, haven't been able to live their lives normally. And I think a lot of people have their boundaries have shifted and the things that are important to them have shifted. And one of those is that they are far more conscious now about what's happening in the world around them, and particularly with global warming. And you're finding people now sort of really rethinking about not supporting companies that, use too much fancy packaging on an item that doesn't need 14 bits of cardboard, 92 pins and 3 cellophane bags to sell you a shirt. So we as consumers can do a lot more. We can say no to things like that. We can sort of start pestering our politicians by emails or social media and things like that about the things that we see that need to change. And I think it's really important that we start doing that because we've only got one planet and we need to really look after that. And I know that there's been, some pretty uncomfortable sort of energy around in the last few days, and we are heading to a full moon in less than 48 hours. But the thing is, we've also had, a lot of planetary shifts and things like that. And I think a lot of us are just becoming plain tired of being promised so many things and so many conflicting messages in the media and, sort of trying to get your life back to some sort of normality. And for many people, it's been a real struggle financially. So that takes me into the Simply Tarot card of the week this week, which is the Three of Cups. Now, it traditionally means money losses. Now, when I talk about money losses, I'm not saying you're going to lose your purse or lose your wallet. I'm talking about fluctuation in money, and it may be the way that you've been able to produce an income, or you've had a lot of bills to catch up on, or just plain there isn't enough money coming in. You feel as if more is going out than what's actually coming in. Now, this card clearly denotes all is not lost. If you look behind, you still have something to salvage. Now, we have 3 cups spilt in the front of us, indicating that whatever was the contents of those cups is spilt on the ground. But behind this person that's bowing their head, there is still 2 cups remaining. So we still have something in reserve. Now, I think that's an interesting way to look at what's actually happening in the planet at the moment. We do have things in reserve. Okay, things mightn't be as exactly as we want them to be. We collectively as a globe in this last over 18 months have been through one of the biggest pandemics the globe has ever seen. And particularly in our modern times, it's the first time in 100 years we've experienced such an event. So, of course, there's going to be adjustments, and our bank accounts have taken a hit as well, and things that we need to look at. So maybe what this card is sort of sharing with us today as we head towards the holiday season, maybe we need to not look at spending quite as much money on things that are going to, 1, affect our bank balance, but 2, affect us on a global warming way. Maybe we need to look at the more important reasons of why we get together on holidays, and that's to share our love and spend time with the people that are important to us. So maybe the message is this year, let's make this festive season a very different event, that we're going to show the loving, the caring, the sharing, and maybe get back to some maybe homemade treats. You know, I think there's nothing more beautiful than somebody giving you a gift that they've made themselves, whether that be, you know, some sweets or some jam or some pickles or a nice cushion for your couch, something that means something, that they've put the time, the energy, and the effort into it rather than something store bought. So that's, you know, I think a lot of things to think about as we head towards the end of the year, and the festive season is coming upon us quite quickly. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, here we go again. But for a lot of other people, it's going to be something to really look forward to, because it's finally we have a reason to be positive. And I know for me that, you know, I've seen lots of posts in this last 14 days where people are saying, can I put the Christmas tree up yet? Is it too early? So people are looking to try and get into that sort of festive season. And yes, I mean, I must admit, I just love Christmas. And this week I've had on the turntable, I've had Christmas music going. I'm sure the neighbours have been thrilled, thinking it's only October, what does she think she's doing? But it was to put a nice energy out into the world that I think that always spells hope when we start singing Christmas carols. So astrologically, we've got a lot of things happening at the moment, as we seem to do every single week. But the big news this week is Mercury, the planet of communication, who has been retrograde for a bit over 3 weeks, is sitting in a stationary position now. That means he's standing still. He's getting ready to dive in off the diving blocks into the pool and start swimming for his life again going forward. Now, that's a really good thing. So what we need to be aware about in this last little bit of this Mercury retrograde, where he is sitting stationary, is it's not the time yet to open your mouth and let everything fall out. If you've got something to say, maybe just leave it for another day or two. Wait until you gather your thoughts a little bit more. Make sure it's very clear if you're going to have a conversation with somebody that you know that might upset them, or they may take offence to, even though you think it's very clear cut and it's easy to understand, but maybe they haven't got their listening ears on yet. So Mercury's still sitting in Libra, so it means that we've got to try and balance things very carefully. We need to try and find balance in everything that we do. Even though it's a time that we want to speak our truth and we want other people to really listen to what we see as the truth, maybe they're not ready to hear it yet. And that's something we as human beings, I think, struggle with, because it's in our mind and it's driving us nuts and we want to get it out of our head. We think the other person should be as receptive as we are to giving or dishing out that information. And sometimes other people just aren't ready. Sometimes the bigger person is you sort of saying to yourself, okay, I acknowledge this information I'm being given that I need to share with this other particular person. But if they're not receptive to it, then all that you can do is mention it, give it your best shot, and then walk away and say, okay, job done. I've done what I was expected to do. Now it's up to them. If they choose not to listen or act on it or even explore what I've suggested, then I'm no longer responsible for, I'm just the messenger. I've delivered the message. It's now up to them what they do with it. And you'll find that that could be happening quite a bit at the moment, where you've got all these pearls of wisdom that you feel you really need to share with people, and all of a sudden they're not as receptive as you think they should be, that you've got the answer to the Holy Grail for them. And they don't see it that way. So just look at it in that way, that you're just the vessel. You're just the person that's the messenger that's delivering the message. You're not responsible to stay there and make sure that they execute the message that you've shared with them. And I know that that sounds difficult, because you think, well, why were you given this message in such a strong way if that you weren't supposed to sort of make sure that they execute it and follow it to the letter? Sometimes we get too overzealous, I think, in what our responsibility or our role is in certain situations. Now we move on to Mars. Mars is the planet of action. It's also the planet that gets us out of bed of a morning, things like that. It gives us our drive, our determination. It can make us be a little bit aggressive and a little bit combative at times, but it also gives us tremendous energy, and it gives us the drive to sort of push forward with new projects. Now Mars is currently sitting in Libra also, not holding hands with Mercury, I must say. So Mars is actually holding hands or conjunct the Sun at the moment in Libra. Now the Sun is where we get our ego and our drive from. It's also the time of the year that we're in astrologically. So we're in the last few days of Libra. So we're in the last few days of where we can try and bring our lives into balance, regardless of what our star sign is. It's asking us to realign, rebalance. Look at the things that we need to bring into balance. What's out of kilter in our lives at the moment, and see if we can't bring it back into balance in a way that we're sort of comfortable with it. We don't say that we have to have everything sorted. We just have to have it in a comfortable position that we could move forward. Because when the sun moves into Scorpio, the energy will be like a really sudden jolt after being sort of a little bit carefree, flexible, being able to look at things from many different sides and sort of saying, okay, I've got a little bit of luxury of time. I can take my time here. I don't need to be in a rush to all of a sudden when we hit that wall of Scorpio energy, it's like, wow, what happened there? You know, all of a sudden everything starts to become very tense, very rigid. Our emotions become incredibly deep. We could also sort of find that we want to start to be a little bit more secretive. We don't really want to share and tell people what's going on in our heads or our plans and things like that. And it's not saying that we shouldn't sometimes hold things a little bit closer to our chest. It's just saying be aware of that. Don't be deliberately secretive. You know, if you've got plans afoot that you're not ready to share yet, just share that with the person. Look, there's things going on. I'm not at liberty to speak about it at the moment, but I will when the time's right. And then that way you minimize that the other person feeling that you're deliberately not sharing something with them or you've got something to hide. And if you've got something to hide, is it rigid? Is it above board, or do I need to be concerned about this? And then they tend to probe and dig and try and get answers out of you even more so because they think you've got a secret that you're trying to hide, and maybe it's something that they should know about. And it's not always that. It's about, you know, trying to get everything straight in your mind about what it is that you want to do. But also I also see the Scorpio time of the year where we need to sort of slow down a little bit and start to look inside ourselves, start delving into our emotions and see what we've dealt with and what we haven't dealt with as the year starts to come to a close. It's about, you know, regurgitating and looking back at what we've achieved during the course of this calendar year. And sometimes that can be quite confronting. So, you know, we've got that coming up in only a days away. So you might start to feel the energy starting to slowly shift a little bit now. But I can assure you it's like a great big thud of hitting a brick wall. When it does move into Scorpio, it's sort of like the energy is that drastically different. And, you know, it's good that we have those wake-up calls like that, because I think we all need to be aware of the things that are happening in our lives. Now, I also want to focus on the planet Venus of love and affection. Now, people think of love and they think, you beauty, I'm going into a new relationship, or I'm going to meet the person of my dreams. Finally, I'm going to meet my soulmate. The Venus, the planet of love and affection, isn't always about love affairs with other people. It can be the things that make us smile in our lives, the things that we're passionate about. Now, I know you're going to think I'm mad when I say this, but I'm incredibly passionate about my work. I really do love what I do. And I feel very, very blessed every single day that I have the opportunity to do the work that I love, to connect with so many people around this amazing planet of ours, and to be able to be a small part of their lives. And that really makes me feel very fortunate. So Venus in Sagittarius is about finding the things that we love to do and expanding on that. Now, when you've got a planet transiting through or moving through the sign of Sagittarius, it's asking us to look at the higher mind stuff, expand your horizons. It may not be the time that you can take that overseas trip, but it is the time that you can really sort of open your mind up to new opportunities, to new things, maybe look at new forms of religion or some new learning, or might be the time that you start expanding and delving into understanding a little bit more about the psychic industry or the complementary therapies, or just being a more decent human being and putting your listening ears on and trying to be helpful in that way, to listen to someone else's problems and then not necessarily sit in judgment or even give them any advice, but just sometimes by listening, you gain a lot from that. And they also gain a lot because they got it off their chest. So there's many different ways of looking at things at the moment. And, you know, we need to be expanding our horizons. And, you know, for those of you that love to travel, and I know there's many of us out there, as the world starts to open up slowly and more cautiously after this pandemic, and the pandemic isn't over by a long shot, I don't believe yet. I wish I could say I thought it was astrologically. I think, you know, we're going to find we'll take one step forward and 3 steps backwards and 3 steps forward and 2 steps backward. It'll be a little bit of the shuffling of the deck chairs for a while until we get the balance right of what we can live with how much illness we can cope with in the world and what our hospital systems can cope with, and how many people get vaccinated versus how many people that don't wish to be vaccinated, and the drugs that they're starting to develop to combat this pandemic. And the thing is, it's not going to be the last pandemic we're ever going to have. And if all the medical experts are right, there's more pandemics to come even in our lifetime. So we have to find a way of learning to deal with these situations. And I think really embrace what the scientists are telling us instead of fighting them every step of the way. They are the ones that have done the research, that have done the training. They're not asking us to roll our sleeves up and get a jab for no reason. They're asking us to do that for the betterment of the whole of the population, not just ourselves individually. So we're going to talk with Beretta in Jacksonville, Florida. And Bonetta, I'm sure I've pronounced your name wrong, and I do apologise, sweetie.
Oh, it's okay. It's Bernetta. You was close enough.
Oh, good. I hate it when I get somebody's name wrong, because I think that's a little bit of an insult to you that I can't pronounce your name. Anyway, Bonetta, how can I help you today, sweetie? Do you have a question I can work with?
Yeah. So I'm having trouble with my marriage right now, and my husband keeps coming home, and then he'll leave for 2 and 3 weeks at a time, and I'm there with the kids. So I'm just calling to get some type of insight onto like what's really going on with my husband and my marriage.
No, I'm sorry to hear that things are in such a precarious situation. Look, the first thing I want to share with you is I don't believe that your husband is cheating on you. I don't feel that's what's happening here. I mean, I know that's the obvious answer that we would jump to in a situation like this with no sort of clarification or no information forthcoming from him telling you exactly what's going on. I think he's in a troubled spot at the moment, and it's not anything, I want to be very clear, it's not because he's married to you, and it's not because he's a family man. I think he's just going through his own sort of personal crisis in himself at where am I going? What am I doing? What do I want? Where is my life taking me? And the only way that he feels that he can try and get some sort of answers out of that is he takes this time out for himself and, disappears from family life for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, which I'm not saying for 1 second is very fair. It isn't. But I feel that we're almost at the end of this period of time that he's really felt he's needed to take this time out for himself. And I'm not particularly sure that it's going to be something that you're going to be particularly happy with, Bonetta. It's like he's coming home and he's announcing that to you that he's finally sort of made up his mind at what the next step is. And he's sort of saying he doesn't feel that he can give the marriage what it deserves, and that he's not being responsible enough, and all these sort of things. And look, all those things are true. But to turn around and sort of say, well, I think the best solution here is that we permanently part company. To me, that's a little bit of a cop-out, because he's had this time going backwards and forwards, trying to work out who he is and where he's going, that then his major big decision is, well, okay, I don't think I'm good enough to be in this situation. Well, it's not just him that he needs to consider. He needs to consider you and the children. Would you sort of agree with me when I say I think he's got some sort of underlying emotional problem?
Oh, yeah. He definitely has emotional problems, yes.
Because that's what I'm picking up as the major cause of this. As I said at the beginning of the reading, be very clear, there's no other person. He's not in love with anyone else. It's not that. I think he's struggling with his own emotions. And to me, to come home and say, look, the best thing I can do is leave permanently so that you and the kids can have a better life, that to me is not necessarily addressing the problem. I mean, okay, you might have to agree with him and let him go ahead and do that. But at the same time, I would be suggesting to him that he needs to get some sort of professional help. He might appear to people that work with him and people that know him and even other family members that there's nothing wrong with him, that he's just being himself. Well, that's not true. What you see is the true part of him, is the part that is struggling, that's not coping with this form of some sort of emotional illness. And I'm not a doctor, so I can't prescribe what it is. But to me, it seems to be far deeper than just a mild depression. This seems to be something that I think needs a label put on it, and some sort of therapy and meds or something like that to bring everything back into balance. And there's nothing to be ashamed of in this way. It's like, if you've got a broken leg, we can all see that because you get the leg plastered up and everybody says, oh dear, that's terrible. I hope you get better soon. We don't tend to apply the same thing to people who have an emotional illness because we can't see the physical side. But your husband is really struggling. I don't doubt for 1 second that he truly loves you and the children. That's not what I'm talking about. I think he just needs to find himself, and he needs to do it really quickly. And I think he also needs to go and get some professional help. So I hope that's helped you, Bonetta, but I don't feel that this marriage is over, even if it comes to the point that he says that he thinks it is, because he's doing this out of love for you and the children. I still want you to sort of encourage him to spend time there as a family man, to spend time with the children, and to encourage him to get some help, because I really do believe he needs professional help.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope that's helped you, Bonetta. We're going to talk with Chris now in Inglewood in Florida. Are you there, Chris?
Yes, I am. Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Do you have a question I can work with, please, Chris?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you have a question you'd like me to answer for you?
I need direction. I am at a crossroads in my life, and I need help. I need to know who to trust.
I can see you well and truly at the crossroads, and it's like you've been sitting in the centre of that intersection for about 6 months now, sort of saying, well, which way should I go? And nothing has really come forward to you, has it? It's like every idea that's come into your mind, we can dismiss it almost immediately because it's like, well, what would I do that for? That's more of the same, or I've been there, done that. That's nothing exciting. I think what you need to do, and I'm not asking you to take this as a cop-out, but I want you to just glide your way through to the end of this year. Stop putting pressure on yourself about, I've got to get everything sorted out. This is ridiculous. I've sat here too long at this crossroads. Just go with the flow. Because if you can actually do that and surrender to it, you'll actually find you'll come out of this quicker than if you keep getting sort of frustrated and aggressive with yourself about, I've got to get this sorted out. We're actually blocking it. But if you surrender to it and just go with it and say, okay, shrug your shoulders and say, I just don't know. It's not that you're giving up. All you're doing is saying, I literally don't know. And until I do know, well, I'll just keep gliding away till the end of the year. By doing that, if you can manage to do that, I think in the next couple of weeks, you will start to find little slithers of things coming into your mind that will start to put you on the right path again. You won't get that big chunk of it in one almighty foul swoop that you say, ha, I know what I'm doing now. It'll be just small, deliberate, definite little steps that will come to you. I think the biggest problem is that you're ahead of your journey, Chris. You've done your allotted tasks or homework, if you want to look at it that way, ahead of time. So what you've got to do now, it's like sitting in the classroom. You've done all the exam, you've done all the work, and you're sitting there waiting for everybody else to finish, and the teacher says, put your pen down now and we're finished. You're ahead of the game. So that's why it sort of feels so frustrating, because you're normally a person of action. You're normally able to sort of know what's ahead of you, the next thing. You've got the next Mount Everest you want to climb. But at this point, you've done all those tasks. So you now just got to sit there and just enjoy the scenery for the moment. 2022 is going to be a year of action. There will be a job change, but I don't think it's going to be much before February, March next year. I'm also going to say to you, I think there's going to be some very strong dreams over this next month. So can I suggest to you to either have a pad and a pen by the bed or your phone or something that you can easily record your thoughts or something like that? Because you're going to get some really big nuggets of information which may not make a lot of sense at the time. And even in the dream, or you get woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you think, well, what on earth did a bulldog mean? I have no idea. I don't even like them. I want you to write it down, because it'll be a symbol for something. It'll be like pieces to a jigsaw puzzle we're going to have to put together. But out of all this will come the answers. I don't think there's anything I can suggest to you to do other than just glide at the moment, because you've done all the work on yourself. You've done all your soul searching. You've sorted out who you like and who you don't like, and what you like about yourself and what you could improve and all those sort of things. You've done all that. You've done all the homework. So it's now just a matter of letting everything else catch up. And that's frustrating when you're such an action person, isn't it, Chris?
Yes, it is. It very much is. You know, we've got so many decisions to make, and I don't know. We're living in Florida, and I really want to stay, but my family is pulling me, and that's probably part of what's really hurting right now, I think.
Yeah, but if you really want to stay, when you say family, is that husband and kids or?
Yeah.
And they want to move, do they?
Yeah, they want to move. They're not, they can't handle the heat anymore. And I've waited, we've lived here about almost 23 years now. And this is all I ever wanted in my life, was to be here. And they're not happy. So one daughter's moved away. Another daughter wants to move. We have a disabled daughter that we have with us, that will be with us until we are gone. And, I really want to travel. There are many things that I want to be able to do. And, you're right. I have done my homework. I haven't done all of it, but I know that I've done a lot of it. No, but I think you're well and truly
ahead of the game. I don't think you're going to move, Chris. Not out of Florida. I just think there's going to be a compromise. Just if you can just be patient, the universe is working really hard at this, and something's going to change in your husband's mind that there won't be a move out of Florida. There might be a move of house, but there won't be a move out of Florida as such. I don't see that.
Okay.
But I do see next year as being a lot calmer than this year. I don't mean to cut you off, Chris, but we're just about at the end of the show. But just keep doing what you're doing, because you're on the right path, sweetie.
Thank you. Thank you. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sweetie. So that was Chris in Florida. Many people have got many decisions to make at the moment. And can I just sort of suggest to you, just sort of take your time. Don't be in too much of a rush to try and get everything sorted out this year. We've all been through the ringer backwards a number of times now during COVID, and I think it's just time to just sort of be. And for those of you that are sort of looking for some inspiration this week, I've had Helen Reddy on the turntable a bit. My producer's one of his favourite singers of all time. And the song I Am Woman has been really popular this week in my household. I've been blurting that out, singing at full voice. And I think it's time that we take our own power back. So why don't you get a little bit of Helen Reddy out and really sing along with I Am Woman. Let me roar. Until next week, bye for now.